Good afternoon. I'm Addy Manriquez, and I am just so honored to be with you here today for the second annual ACEs Awareness International Conference. I first want to thank Dr. Tori and all of the team with the Be Victorious Foundation for inviting me to come into this space and be able to present with you. I'll be presenting on breaking the inheritance that we received that we maybe didn't ask for and shifting from conditioned to conscious. So, thank you for being here with me. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, don't just create painful memories, they alter stress physiology, how we attach to other people, how we detach, and they also alter our neural pathways. They shape how we interpret tone, conflict, silence, and even love. As a cycle breaker, like many of you, I'm a trauma informed coach, speaker, facilitator, speech language pathologist, and a special education administrator. I've spent over 30 years studying communication, not just language, but nervous system communication. I've worked at the intersection of communication, neurodevelopment, and behavior. Well, supporting children with very complex needs and also supporting the parents and caregivers of these children while working with multidisciplinary teams, I studied how language, cognition, and regulation interact with one another. So, what I know professionally and what I have lived personally have come together. And when they came together, what emerged was this truth for me. Many of the traits that many people admire in survivors and the traits within ourselves that we either admire or we may even view as flawed are not flaws at all. They are nervous system adaptations, they are conditioned patterns, and they are inherited. Today, I want to explore with you how these conditioned inheritances were created, how they become identity, how they impact our communication and our relationships, and how we can consciously shift from conditioned to conscious. Before we begin, I want you to think of one sentence that you heard growing up that shaped who you became. And it might be something that you didn't really appreciate. It may have been something told to you, something told about you, or something that you told yourself. Now, notice what just happened in your body. Did you have any tension in your back? Did you have any difficulty swallowing or have a constricted throat? Did your jaw clench? Did you notice maybe if you were holding your breath? ACEs don't just shape memories, they condition our nervous systems, our identity, and they especially condition who we think we have to be in order to survive. As a child of an alcoholic and substance abuser, I lived the majority of my life reading the room, always scanning, anticipating other people's feelings, anticipating their actions, unconsciously creating a safety plan, and then inheriting this belief that I was responsible or that it was my role to ensure that family secrets were kept and that everybody was comfortable regardless of the chaos. After numerous life challenges and extensive work with a life coach, I learned that I had been carrying inheritances of patterns that weren't mine to carry. I didn't know I was carrying an inheritance. I just thought I was strong. Everybody talked about me and said I was strong and resilient. But I definitely inherited not money, not property, but patterns. I grew up being known as and becoming the strong one, the forgiving one, the one who could read the room before anyone spoke because I had to survive. I was praised for being mature, independent, capable. And those traits, they served me well. These traits helped me graduate from college or high school, graduate from college, earn a bachelor's degree and a commission in the United States Army National Guard when I was only 21 years old. I then earned a master's degree as a speech language pathologist and built a 30-year career as a speech language pathologist in Colorado, Germany, Hawaii, Virginia, and even all the way in Turkey. I then went on to earn another degree, this time as an educational specialist. All of this positioned me to serve and lead in special education systems and general education systems. So ultimately, these traits led me to become an entrepreneur, a coach, and a consultant because I want to help others feeling trapped in their inheritances. These strengths made me effective, but they also had other impacts. What I didn't understand then was that my strengths had a nervous system. No one called it trauma. No one called it nervous system adaptation. No one explained to me that as a child growing up with unpredictability, my brain would constantly be reorganizing around safety. Because when safety is uncertain, the nervous system chooses efficiency. Hyper awareness, hyper independence, they become identity. Over functioning became my personality. My emotional restraint looked like maturity. And survival just starts to look like a disjointed self. No one ever said to me, Addy, your hyperindependence might be an adaptation, a conditioned response. Maybe I was living in my ego, hearing the words that I could handle anything, that I was strong, that I wouldn't break, that I was mature, I was emotionally intelligent, resilient, smart, all of those things. They led me to believe that those were all my identity until I was forced to listen to what my body had been saying to me my entire life. I suffered with chronic insomnia where I could fall asleep because I was exhausted. But if I woke up 20 minutes later or 2 hours later, I could not go back to sleep, most often in the middle of the night. I had chronic tension, severe back pain. I had difficulty resting. If I was sitting and another adult walked in the room, I felt like I had to get up and make sure that they saw that I was doing something. I had anxious feelings that would surface when I least expected them. I had migraine headaches, luckily without pain, but they came with severe dizziness and an aura that would kind of take over and would they would almost make me black out. I ended up with squamous cell cancer on my face and thyroid cysts. My body kept talking to me. My body had been signaling to me the tension, the exhaustion, the conflict, feeling like danger all of my life was letting me know. While my strength and my resilience and my emotional maturity were conditioned responses, they were taking a major toll on my body. That realization changed how I understood trauma and how I also understood transformation. What I began to recognize is that while these characteristics or patterns may have served me in some capacity to feel safe in my family of origin, they were negatively impacting me personally and also professionally. What I began to learn and see is that although I was successful professionally and I was succeeding in various areas professionally, my conditioned responses, my conditioned patterns were still impacting me. I was over functioning professionally, volunteering for every team, um, making sure that everything was perfect. I held myself to a standard that weaved in and out of perfectionism, mostly in. I was incredibly frustrated when I observed perceived injustices and could do nothing about them. Nobody could see that on the surface because I was always the helpful one, the kind one, the one that people went to when they needed support. In my personal relationships, in my most important and intimate relationships, I had very unhealthy attachments. And I would go into fight or flight or freeze or fawning, and just had great difficulty sitting with other people's discomfort. In 2017, I sought out the support of a life coach because I was struggling with some family situations that were going on. And that life coach, after we met a few times, she told me that I needed to work on my communication. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I said, "Do you know who you're talking to? I'm an expert in communication. I'm a speech language pathologist." And she helped me to understand that all of these adaptations were not serving me. I was not showing up authentically. I was not saying what I really felt inside. And all of that was impacting my body and my health. So I would tell my coach, like, what is wrong with me? I think my whole life I felt different. I felt like there was something wrong with me. And I finally understood that I'm not broken. We are not broken. I was patterned. I'd inherited patterns that once protected me. So the question isn't whether or not we have patterns. The real question is, which patterns are we going to keep? That's what it means to start to break the inheritance. There was the landmark ACEs study by Filiti and team in 1998 that showed a dose response relationship between early adversity and long term health outcomes. What neuroscience now shows us is why. Many of us in this room or in this space are what we call cycle breakers. We were the ones who became strong, responsible, capable, but strength built on survival is heavy. It's heavy on the mind and it's very heavy on the body. Today, we'll talk about this more, but it's not about blaming the past. It's not about dissecting your trauma. It's about understanding how we shift from conditioned survival to conscious choice. And that shift begins with us understanding the nervous system. I recognize we all come from different spaces, and this may not be new to you, but I've learned that the more I hear things, even if I already know it, but I hear it in a different way, it just has a different impact on me. So we know that when a child grows up in unpredictability, the brain prioritizes survival over exploration. The amygdala, I'm going to talk about three parts of the brain. The amygdala becomes very efficient at reading the room through hypervigilance and hyperresponsivity. So it will react to neutral or minor cues, like a very ambiguous facial expression, a nod of the head, a questioning look. And the amygdala will look at those as imminent threats. So this creates a biological change in the brain. This alarm keeps going off over and over and over. And when it stays on longer, it can lead to an increased or heightened baseline anxiety, and then more consistent fear responses. So maybe a lower threshold for fear responses. The hippocampus is different. It's critical for forming all of our memories and especially for attaching the context to those memories. So, knowing when and where something is dangerous versus safe. So, an example might be that a child learns that a specific sound is dangerous, but they fail to realize that that sound is only dangerous in that environment. So they may have fear responses in safe environments if they hear that sound. So prolonged exposure to this can lead to like memory fragmentation, where the brain has difficulty integrating new information with existing information or existing knowledge. And the best example that I can give to you is just more of a personal example. When I hear glass on glass, I will sometimes get I'm activated. because I remember hearing the refrigerator open and the wine bottle hitting a glass. I was always listening for that because that would tell me what type of a Friday night I was going to have or what type of an evening I was going to have at home. The last part of the brain I'm going to discuss is the prefrontal cortex. It's the part of the brain that's responsible for providing control over your emotions or impulses and helping you make decisions. So, we talk about executive functioning. So, planning, thinking, organizing, all of these things in the brain. So, the brain impact or the biological impact is when there are high levels of stress chemicals, um, they can weaken prefrontal cortex connections. So, this results in executive functioning deficits. So, the brain becomes less capable of calming down that threat response that comes with amygdala, the amygdala alarm. And then that may lead to increased difficulty with managing emotional conflict, which then may result in impulsive actions or impulsive reactions. So, with that knowledge or that reminder, we know that the nervous system learns stay alert, stay small, stay perfect, stay useful, and stay invisible. I don't know about you, but I know that when I was a teenager, I could not wait to leave the house. I wanted to leave. I thought that once I get out of this environment, I'm going to be on my own and I'm not going to have these problems and I'm not going to have these feelings. But I learned that those neural pathways don't disappear at 17, they become identity. Trauma is not the event. It's what happens inside the nervous system when there is the inability to co regulate. Neuroscientist Dr. Stephen Porges, through the polyvagal theory, explains that our nervous system constantly scans for safety or danger, safety or danger. And this is often happening outside of our consciousness. So when safety is inconsistent, the nervous system will then adapt. It will adapt with hypervigilance. We are listening to others' tones of their voices, their facial expressions. Even if the room is silent, we can become very highly sensitive to what we perceive as cues of threat. Your brain begins asking, am I safe? Did I do something wrong? Are they upset with me? To this day, when my husband says to me, or even my adult children said, oh, I wanted to tell you something, I get activated inside. I will feel something in the pit of my stomach because I'm worried that maybe I had said something or did something wrong. I work on it. We also have overfunctioning. When we were children and safety depended on being capable or responsible or good, the nervous system learned if I hold everything together, I will be safe. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. We have people pleasing, prioritizing the needs, the emotions, the opinions of others over our own. And we do this because we often fear conflict. And if there's conflict, then there might be some type of a rejection. And if there's rejection, there might ultimately be abandonment. So that can look like I don't want to go to the family function, but if I don't go, the family will be mad at me. I know they're going to talk about me. If I go and I don't like what they're talking about, if I say I disagree, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my uncle, somebody will get upset. So that can all of these can lead to shutdown. When overwhelm becomes just too much, the nervous system protects by just dampening emotional and physical activation. And this can look like emotional numbness, dissociation, difficulty speaking up, doom scrolling for hours, all of which can lead to chronic tension. Our muscles stay partially contracted as if they're preparing for danger when we're having all of these feelings. The body is essentially telling us, stay ready. These conditioned patterns become our beliefs, and they can lead to disempowered expression, disempowered communication, people pleasing, hyper independence, shutting down, chronic tension, hypervigilance. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, which of these conditioned patterns has protected you or protected me? Okay, I want to share with you none of these are weaknesses. They are just evidence that your nervous system was doing its job. Unfortunately, there are external factors, are external inheritances that come upon us that we don't ask for. And I will let you read those. So, all of these together can create a sense of a need for safety, and we remain silent. But what does silence protect? Well, some of these made me silent my voice. Trust me, I've always had an opinion. I can talk until 4 in the morning. I wasn't afraid to share my opinion, but when it was really important and when it was in the most important relationships, I sacrificed myself for protection. Many survivors of adversity didn't learn communication by being encouraged to speak up, right? We learned communication by learning when not to speak up. Some of us learned that very early that we learned very early that silence was safer, safer than questioning, safer than disagreeing, safer than drawing any attention to ourselves. So maybe you learned to stay quiet because conflict felt unpredictable. Maybe you learned to become invisible because attention brought criticism of you, criticism that hurt deeply. And maybe you learned to absorb hurtful words or behavior because keeping the peace felt safer than speaking the truth. I know that was definitely for me. As children, we don't have the power to change our environments. What is the cost? When silence becomes patterned in the nervous system, there is a cost. The cost affects our overall state of being, how we show up for ourselves, and that impacts our overall health and wellness. We can drown in self doubt. We can have difficulty setting boundaries, feeling rejected, over explaining, just being disconnected from ourselves. I'm wondering and curious, does your body now believe it's safe to speak? There came a point when I decided to try coaching that I shared earlier. And when my coach asked me, who would you be without the story of your pain? That was such a turning point for me. It helped me to see that everything that I had been carrying was just not mine to hold. I began to separate trauma from truth, belief from biology, and survival from identity. And that's when I really recognized that I needed to release some deep seated shame that I was feeling. I learned that even though I was very confident and I came across as very confident, I had a lot of fear embedded within my body. I also had always been told and taught to forgive. So, because I wanted to do the right thing, I made every effort to forgive. I thought that forgiveness was healing. Once you forgave, then everything got better. But I quickly learned that the push for forgiveness was also inherited. All of these were inherited, but not chosen. So I knew that I and learned that I had to reframe. Reframing was about reclaiming choice because I had so many things happen where I didn't have a choice in my life. And so I had to choose to believe in my voice again. One of the first steps in shifting from conditioned to conscious is to name the pattern without the shame. So I don't know if you've heard of Dan Siegel, but he says you have to name it to tame it. So I want to encourage you to, when you start to ask questions like, why am I like this? Why do I keep doing this? Instead of saying, why am I like this? You say, my nervous system learned that approval meant safety. When you start to question, why do I give in? Why do I not say no? Why do I say yes when I want to say no? You pause and you say, my nervous system learned that approval meant safety. Instead of saying, why do I keep not saying what I really want to say? You just say to yourself, of course I feel this way. It makes sense that I'm afraid to speak my truth. When I spoke my truth, I was punished. And that punishment can come in many different ways. As a speech language pathologist, I studied a lot about communication. And especially as a coach, I've continued my learning about communication. And what neuroscience now confirms is this: communication is just not cognitive in language, it is physiological. So when we become dysregulated, when we hear words, we're not necessarily listening to the words, but what we really hear is tone. Okay, that amygdala is activated for threat detection. When there is an issue happening in the communication, we're not necessarily thinking about strategy. What can I do to release this tension that I'm feeling within myself? We go into a state where we're not maybe able to function or think very well. That's when we're going back to the hippocampus, like thinking that something is not safe. So you go into a dysregulated state. And then also, we instead of moving towards resolution, um, we become very dysregulated. Like, oh, this is I'm scared. This hurts. I'm angry. I know I shouldn't say anything because the other person might reject me. Those types of things. Our nervous system will move toward fight, flight, or shut down. So we hear tone over words, state over strategy, and regulation or dysregulation over regulation, which leads us to our second condition to conscious tool, the regulation pause. When you notice emotional activation during a conversation, there are four things that I want to encourage you to do. Pause before responding, slow your exhale, relax your jaw and your shoulders, and then speak. A longer exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that will signal safety to the brain. So, in moments where you're activated, the brain is not prioritizing connection, it's prioritizing survival. So, when you notice emotional activation, these are four things that you can do. So, we know on the left hand side, We have been referred to as the responsible ones, the helpful ones, the strong ones, the ones who listen, or the smart ones. But has anyone in here ever felt like the different one in your family? Or have you become the different one in your family? Usually in families, there are one or two who begin to notice the patterns. This is the awareness of the unrequested inheritance. This is someone who starts to ask different questions. This is someone who decides that something here needs to change in this relationship and in the way we communicate. That person is often called the cycle breaker. But the descriptors for us change when we become cycle breakers. The responsible one now may be referred to as the disobedient one. The helpful one who has boundaries may now be referred to as the selfish one, and so on. Because the descriptors for us change as we become cycle breakers, we we frequently experience guilt, feelings of guilt or shame or loneliness because differentiating ourselves, our differentiation from the family, um, can feel like we're being disloyal. I remember the podcast with Dr. Tori that I did. And I remember shaking. My legs were kind of moving. My stomach didn't feel good. And I did tell her, I said, I feel like I'm being disloyal because I was telling a story that I had been holding in for a long time. I had shared with different people at different times, but to share that so publicly felt very disloyal. So I understand that. So, what I'd like to do is reframe differentiation. So, this is your third condition to conscious tool. So, I want you to look at these phrases that you can say to yourself and process them internally. If you notice that you're feeling guilty or disloyal or shameful, you can say to yourself, I can love my family and choose different patterns. I am choosing to heal myself and break unhealthy generational patterns. Differentiation is not selfish, conceit, or rejection or abandonment of my family or family of origin. But what it is self definition within connection. I want to encourage you because we all know that the brain changes through neuroplasticity. Our neural pathways strengthen with repetition. So, when a response pattern is used repeatedly, the brain creates a new and more efficient pathway. So, increasing your awareness helps you to understand, creates understanding. When we are able to better regulate ourselves, it allows us to recognize conditioned responses. Naming and reframing creates choice to do things a different way. And then repeating these new narratives over and over again creates empowered communication. Again, when a response pattern is used repeatedly, the brain develops a new and more efficient pathway. But the same brain that wired survival responses will also wire new relational and communication responses. Our fourth and last condition to conscious tool is a values based communication framework. And we're going to start with the blue square. So you start there and go around. You notice activation in a communication exchange. You're feeling guilty, you're feeling fearful, maybe resentful. You're starting to feel that in your body. Well, you have options to regulate. You can do some breath work. You can step away and return. You have options to be able to regulate your body. Then, when you feel regulated, you can speak from your values. Speak from whatever value it is that you want to bring up at that time. If somebody is getting argumentative, you can say, I value peaceful connections. When voices get loud, I start to shut down. And then you just express what your need is. I need a few minutes. I'm gonna step out and come back, and then we can continue this conversation calmly. This values-based communication framework keeps communication connected without abandoning yourself. When you look at this, what conversation or not conversation, what conversation or relationship in your life right now might benefit from this type of shift? Noticing your activation, regulating your body, speaking from a specific value, and expressing your needs. I'd like for you to just reflect on these questions. What conditioned patterns am I still carrying that I no longer need? What role did I learn to play in my family? Which patterns help me to survive? Which patterns might be impacting my relationships right now? Which of my inherited patterns might be impacting my willingness to live authentically and unapologetically right now? I want to encourage you to take some time to actually answer these questions and maybe journal about them. You spent some time looking at these questions, reflecting on something that many of us carry quietly: conditioned patterns, roles we learned to play, ways we adapted so we could feel safe and survive. And those adaptations, they deserve compassion because at one point in your life, they did serve you and they protected you. But part of becoming conscious is asking a new question. Are these patterns still protecting me? Or are they limiting the life and the relationships and the authenticity and agency that I want in my life right now? So while I'm very grateful to be here with you, it's difficult for me because I have so many things I want to share with you, so many different strategies and modalities that I would love to share. But of course, I only had time to share a bit. So I hope those four conditioned to conscious um, supports will help you. But I do want to take the time to do something with you now. I know that this conversation or this content and this weekend can be a lot for us to process. Things that we thought that we were over, we may not necessarily be over. Things might just kind of come to the surface as we're having these conversations, listening to these presentations. So I wanted to offer something to you, a time for like reflection and a time to come into your body and just relax a bit. So I want to encourage you to close your eyes if you'd like, or if not, I put a beautiful picture up for you and you could just look at the picture. So go ahead and take a deep breath in and release. Take another deep breath in, expanding your rib cage, and release. blowing out like you're blowing through a straw. Let your body settle into the space. Let the outside world just fade for a moment and turn inward. Now, I want you to imagine you're standing somewhere safe and open in a space that you feel belongs to you, a place that brings you peace. You're calm, you're grounded, and standing right in front of you is the most powerful version of yourself. The you who understands your conditioned patterns and recalls every detail of your story. But this is the you who no longer feels the need to edit or erase your past. You're just going to hold your past with compassion and courage and with a little bit more clarity after today. This version of you has nothing to prove. They don't carry shame. They're not performing. They're not pleasing. They're not shrinking to fit or overcompensating or over explaining to be understood. They speak clearly. They move confidently. They stand freely. Look at them. Feel into them. This is you. This is you with your voice fully restored, your power fully embodied, and your story fully owned. What do they say when they speak their truth without fear? How do they sound when they speak with purpose and without an apology? Notice how they hold themselves, shoulders back, heart open, grounded in truth. Notice the energy around them. Who's in their space now? Who's no longer in their space? What boundaries have been drawn? What freedom has been reclaimed? Feel the lightness in your chest, the steadiness in your core, the strength in your voice, even if it's quiet, even if it trembles just a little bit. It's real. It's yours. This version of you is not imaginary. I want you to know that this version of you has always been there, beneath the survival, beneath the silence. They have been waiting patiently to be remembered, to be welcomed, to be heard. Breathe into that version of you. Let them rise, let them guide you. And when you're ready, begin to draw them in. Write them, name them, talk to them. Let their voice come through your hands. Let their story take shape on the page. This is you, fully expressed, deeply empowered, highly conscious, and feeling more free. Go ahead and take another breath and open your eyes. I hope that you were able to find some peace within that. So, becoming conscious is asking a new question to you. Are the patterns still protecting me, or are they limiting the life and the relationships that I want now? It's about gaining the awareness and the regulation to choose something different. And the truth is, that kind of change rarely happens just through education and insight alone. It happens through intentional practice, reflection, and support. That's why I created my 12-week coaching program called Competent Connections Empowering Transformative Communication. And in that program, I walk alongside individuals who are ready to move from conditioned patterns to conscious communication. I work with my clients to co create a plan where we increase personal insight, release beliefs that are limiting self trust, we regulate the nervous system, we talk about having courageous conversations, and practice communicating with clarity and confidence and authenticity. So, the result of that is something that many survivors of adversity have never fully experienced: relationships where you can be connected and also be yourself. So, I would truly love to be a companion for anyone in this space who's ready to continue this work. So, if today resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in these patterns, or if you simply want to just deepen your capacity for more authentic communication and healthier relationships, I invite you to reach out and schedule a complimentary 75-minute discovery session. Before I share with you how you can reach out to me, I want to thank you for the courage that you have and that you brought into this room today. I really feel grateful to be here. I apologize. I noticed that my transitions, for whatever reason, when I'm recording, they don't come out right. They were just all coming at once. But the content is all there for you. So here is my contact information. And I just can see now that the recording is over my name or over my contact information. So it's best to send me an email or reach out through Instagram. It's Addy Manriquez. Well, let me start at the top. My phone number is 351-333-5161. You can reach me through email at connect@addymanriquez.com. And you can reach me on Instagram, Addy Manriquez _CC for coach and consultant. I'm not sure why that says .com. But I do want to encourage you, whether you are wanting to engage in further work coaching with me, I do offer a complimentary 75-minute discovery session. And if there's something that you're going through or something you want to talk about, we can use that space and that time to do that. And then I also want to ask you, if something spoke to you today, if there was something that I said or there was a visual, something that spoke to you, I want to ask if you would take a picture of a slide or two that spoke to you, or maybe a little video clip. And if you can post that on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, and tag me, I will send you a gift of appreciation. I will send you my ebook, A Guide to Illuminating Your Empowered Voice. I would really appreciate that. And I also, I really was really looking forward to being able to interact with the audience when I presented in person, and unfortunately was not able to be there. So if you just reach out to me and through Instagram and just say, hey, I saw your talk. If you're not someone that typically posts, I'd love to meet you and I'd love to get to know you. So again, I'd appreciate it if you could tag me and I'll send you a gift, and please reach out for your complimentary 75-minute discovery session. It was great to be here. I feel really honored. Thank you.